Bookish, a design book club for curious minds.
Oh, I hear it now.
There you go. I told you I have tricks. It stopped the music. It's going into a different lo-fi song.
Bruno,
Yes.
I know that you asked if anyone didn't speak Portuguese, but did you ask if anyone in the chat did not understand English?
I
That
didn't
is
ask.
true.
So, anyone in the chat, alguém que não saiba ou não consiga entender inglês? Ask in Portuguese.
Eu percebo bem inglês, mas por vezes em algumas palavras tenho alguma dificuldade. Sou franco.
Ok. Obrigado, João. We'll try to do our best to keep this conversation like really simple and open. So we're already 7 minutes in. I managed to put some little background music so that we don't have like a weird silence going on. But welcome to the first ever Bookish. And as we said in every single promos we launched, this is kind of a design book club. Reading is not mandatory, but that's also why we have Joana here today with us, who's the other author of the book that we're going to be talking about today. The idea of this is to not only share some really great books that we know are starting to go around and people talk about. If we can, like today, be able to talk with the authors and have this little bit of a more chill moment. And the idea, contrary to other live streams and events we do, is that you guys also participate. So feel free to open up the camera, the microphone, show us if you're drinking tea or whatever. The goal here is for this to feel a little bit more like a conversation about, in this case, the work that Joana did, but also all the topics surrounding her book and the things that you guys might find interesting and conversations like that. If you don't feel at ease to use the camera and microphone, Q&A is open, as Salome has said, so you're welcome to just drop questions. And now maybe I'm gonna just pass it on to Joana to present herself a little bit, maybe.
I prepared a few slides because I didn't know the structure for the session. Can I share the screen?
Able to share the screen.
Okay.
We left the room ready for everyone to be able to participate, so. Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome to my book launch session. Thank you so much for joining us this night. I hope this session is inspiring, at least. And a little bit about myself. I started as a UX designer around 2010. And since then, I have been working for industries like financial, education, retail, and more recently, manufacturing. I have been specifically designing AI and machine learning solutions since 2016. And the story I'm about to share with you is the result of that 10 years of experience and studying and creating AI and machine learning services. I also have a PhD from the University of Porto, where I specialize in anticipatory systems. And the result of that study is a big contribution for the book I'm about to present. And of course, I love to write. Even before publishing the book, I wrote for UX magazines like UX Matters, Smashing Magazine, UXPA Magazine, and other platforms. So another thing about myself, I will launch a new course this year in the starter about the fundamentals about machine learning for designers. If you are interested in, should come in the upcoming months. I will also be a speaker in the World Usability Congress this year. So if you are interested to join me on a trip to Austria, I can share a discount coupon for the conference. So send me a message and I'm happy to share that discount with you. And finally, I will also be launching a course with the UX UI this year. And this course in particular is very much the hands-on part of my book contribution. So if you are interested, I shared here the link for the registration and to know more about the content. So where my book come from? Like I mentioned, I started this journey 10 years ago. And when I started designing AI and machine learning systems, it was a very strong friction to speak with engineers because the technology was very different from what I was used to design. The communication was hard and I didn't understood the impact of training a model and the technology had in the user experience. And back then, we didn't have the Google Playbook or IBM and other stuff that today we have to support our design process. So I decided to go take a PhD in engineering faculty to understand the technical part. So I knew how to communicate with the engineering teams, the data scientists, but also to better understand how the technology itself impacts the end user experience. And also because through these years, a lot of designers come to me very frustrated and overwhelmed, asking me, where do I start? How do I speak with the engineering teams and the data teams? How do I evaluate if an AI system is good? So I took all of that into consideration and built my book around this elephant in the room. So last year, there was a report that showed us that more or less 80% of the AI solutions, they failed when they reached the market. And this is a very high level, even compared with those supposed traditional IT projects. So this is a major red flag. So AI solutions are not generation adoption in the short term or the long term. And when I start my journey, I was very eager and overwhelmed and excited with this new type of solutions. And every time a new service come up, I would study, I start writing chapters of how amazing they were, how they were revolutionizing some industries, fascinated by their potential. But because I did my PhD as a part-time, because I'm a full-time designer, the years pass by and 1 year pass, 2 years pass. And every time I look to those amazing services, they start to fail. So all the chapters that I wrote about how cutting edge the technology was and how they were revolutionizing the way we experience services, they start to be outdated, and all of them start to feel like a domino or cards. So that's the moment I flipped the way I was looking to my research and the way I design my solutions in my day-to-day work. So if all of these supposed wonderful services that was meant to revolutionize the industry were failing, so what was happening? Because most of them, it was not because of the technology itself. Sometimes the user experience was fantastic, the interface as well. So what was happening in the backstage that was making all of these services to fail consistently? So this led me to a conclusion that most of the companies, they were using AI as makeup layer, but on fundamental broken systems. So companies were not looking to solve users' problems. They were just putting layers of sophisticated technology under legacy systems and broken systems. And this, of course, leads to automated dysfunction. And for us as designers, we end up having more complex problems to solve. And what I noticed was that most of these companies, they were putting too much focus on forecasting, which means using data from the past and from the present to optimize to forecast the future. But they were lacking different way to look to the problems, to foresight, which means look to the future and try to imagine possibilities, different futures. But mentioning that the problem comes from the data itself almost sounds like heresy. But if we imagine all the big data revolution come from the data, so the problem is not the data itself. What I want to make it very clear is that there's a fundamental issue with data when we look to how the human behavior and the user context and intent. So there's limitation to create systems that are resilient and scalable to our intentions if we just look to past data, because we are just looking to replicate patterns and probabilities from the past and not looking to the possibilities of the future. So in summer, what those systems fail are three human elements. The first one is intent. So systems are full of data, but they lack understanding of how people really behave. And when the system starts working on this data without the human context, they started doing what we are always asking our stakeholders to not to do, which is assumptions. And when the systems work based on the assumptions, they normally end up creating irrelevant automations and suggestions and making the overall user experience poor. And the second element is the foresight. So when systems focus too much on forecasting, which means using the probability of the past as a map to the future, they they normally don't have the foresight capabilities to reimagine different scenarios, anticipating possible change and adapt, or they ignore the context and the human intention. A very simple example to understand this is, for example, your Waze app. It can easily send you to a very dangerous neighborhood to 3 or 4 a.m. just because it's the shortest way to your home. Statistically, it's correctly because he's Waze is giving you the route, the shorter route between where you are to your home. But is that the preferable user experience for you? No. So these highly automated systems, they tend to be very blind to the human context. And third, all of these lack of sensibility to the context we operate and our motivations, this leads to our third element, the lack of user agencies. So when systems automate too much but explain too little, this creates systems that are black box. And if we don't understand the reasoning and why the system is suggesting certain things to us, we tend to not trust the system. And if we don't trust the system, the design already fell, whatever, how good the AI model or the user interface may be. And a very simple example of these three elements is the nest. The nest is even considered the best anticipatory design example. But on my view, I put my reservations because imagine you have Nest for a year, training your habit, your routines on your home, and they automate everything in perfection. But imagine that a newborn comes to your home, so the routine changed overnight. But these systems are not prepared to adapt to the new user context in real time. So they are stuck in a past of historical data. So they will keep automating, for example, energetic efficiency when now the priority is the baby comfort. So Nest is the perfect example of what I call forecasting fallacy. So it will keep automating this function until he learns the new routines and the new user context of the house in real time. So this is why I end up writing my book, because I often see too many companies creating services that are statistically correct, but they are completely blind to the user context. And if we look to the past, 30 years ago, design thinking helped us start from the people. And back then, understanding the present and the user behavior was sufficient to design solutions with purpose and value. But today, things are so fast. Even in 1 month, with the new AI tools, everything is changing constantly. So understanding the present is no longer enough to build resilient systems. So that's why in my perspective, I defend that we need a new perspective, one that helps us think how people and even technology are progressing. So in my book, I propose a new ally to our current design process, which is foresight, also known as future thinking. Foresight will help us look not only to the present, but to the future. Imagine possible alternative futures so we can design systems that can adapt to change and anticipate change, and in the end be more resilient. So we are not designing just for a specific feature or the happy path that we were told to do so in the past, but now we have to be more futuristic in the way we look to the service we are trying to create. So in practice, what I suggest is my book is to learn how to use a foresight tool, the backcasting. And backcasting is exactly the opposite of forecasting. Forecasting uses historical data to predict the future. Backcasting is looking to the future and set up a future-oriented goal and work backwards to the present. So it's like a service blueprint, but in opposite. A very simple example to understand these two concepts is for you, imagine that you want to plan your next vacations. With forecasting, the system will look, for example, to your last 5 trips to a beach destination and will suggest another beach destination based on your preference. With backcasting, is you saying to the system, no, I'm done with beach, I want to go climb a mountain. So you set that future goal and the system will help you achieve that and prepare all the steps you need to do today to make that the future possible. So, but the goal is never to abandon forecasting, although even when we recognize the limitations of data, we need data to understand where we are coming from. So what I suggest in the book is synergy between forecasting and backcasting. And a simple way to look to this approach is to, in the first step, is define the desired future. What do you want help your company or customer or your user to reach in the future? Be specific. And then identify the gap. What's the difference between today and that feature you want to achieve? And third, work backwards to map those milestones that are needed to happen along the way to make that feature possible. And fourth, start to designing what needs to be done today to help the user reach that destination. So the end goal is not predict the future, is to design the way to help reach that future-oriented goal. And let me give you a very simple example why a sophisticated AI, excellent user interface, and even a decent user experience is not enough to make this service successful. Mint is a good example. It was a financial application launched in 2007 that promised to help people to manage their financial assets. And around 2017, they introduced an automated, personalized features with a very sophisticated AI. But in the end, this service failed miserably, even with a huge base of millions users base and a decent application. So if the problem was not the technology, was not the user interface, and not the usability of the application, what was? If we look to the elements I introduced earlier, the agency, the intent, and the foresight, the reasons start to be clear. So the first mistake of Mint was they didn't want to look how things were evolving. The market is no longer made of a fixed salary. Now we have the content creators, the streamers, the freelancers, the contractors. So the way people earn money is very different from what exists a few decades ago. But Mint was not looking ahead to the future where things were evolving. So they got stuck in the traditional way of earnings. And second, they also didn't want to look to the new ways people were interested in savings, like the crypto or the NFCs. So they got stuck in these past financial ways of managing money and investing. And last and more importantly, Mint confuse automation with assistance. They automated too much and explained too little. So they moved the user from the driver's seat to the passenger seat. And this was really dangerous because the user didn't felt they were in control over the system. And that's one of the biggest reasons why this service failed. So Mint is just one example of many AI services today that overlook autonomy, personalization, transparency, and user control. And that's why he is one of the 80% of the products that end up failing when they reach the market, despite his sophisticated AI and user interface. So the big question is, what can design do different to break this cycle? For me, and what I illustrate in the book, is that the future of AI doesn't depend on more sophisticated algorithms. It depends on designers comprehending psychology and human behavior. That's why we need to align behavior change design with the creation of AI services, grounded on the principles of backcasting. And behavior change design, behavior design change, is by nature future oriented, because we need to target something in the future. I want to gain a new habit. I want to change a priority. I want to learn a new skill. So we have to put our goal in the future and then start designing the system backwards, what the system needs to do today to help me reach that goal. And looking to the few examples I share, and the book is full of them, the success of AI will depend on three principles: the user agency, design for control and in a way that builds trust; personalization, recognizing that change is no longer linear; and timely interventions, knowing how to design interactions, and how to design an AI system that knows how to act, and especially when not to act. But all of these three principles, they are very complex, and especially when we are talking about human behavior. So one thing I did during my PhD research, it was look to behavior science frameworks and understand which one were the best to meet the needs of these three specific principles. And what my PhD revealed was these three. And I choose them because they are very old frameworks. So for example, the frog framework is around for more than 20 years, and the nudge theory is based on prize winner prize, how do you say, Nobel Prize winner. Sorry. So these tools are here for a long time, so they have proved their value. So I'm not proposing anything new. I'm just going to other fields of knowledge and bring those tools to the design process to meet our current gaps. And let me explain those frameworks with an example, because it's much easier than just trying to explain the theory behind. So Meet VSense, it was launched in 2016 as the first fitness headset with AI. Their promise was to revolutionize the fitness industry by allowing you to have personal trainer in your ears, giving you motivations and workout in real time with conversation AI that sound more like a friend and not a robot. And from the technical point of view, V was really marvelous. They reach a very good technical service. But they failed miserably, like Mint. And when we start to look to these three human behavior frameworks, we start understanding why. And their first failure was on personalization. They give the same experience for users that were beginners or advanced. So they treat everyone as the same. And this violates the trans-theoretical model of Prochaska that tell us that behavior is gradual. It happens in phases. And how do you say? Your willingness to act. So this framework lesson is that we need to start designing AI service that that need to be personalized on the motivation and the context where the user is. So our role as designers is to design this complexity according to the phase that the user is. So if they are a new user, his experience should be much different than an advanced one. And we can use the backcasting here to start designing which behavior we want the user to achieve. In this case, for example, could be turning beginner user into an advanced one, and the advanced one increase their performance in whatever sport they are in. And the second failure was on the agency. So VSense focused entirely on the capability, meaning make that headphones physically possible. But they forgot the most important aspect, motivation. And users without the right motivation, they will see this type of service just a new gadget. They will get very excited in the beginning to try it, but they will end up not using it on the long term because they just focus on the capability and not on the motivation. And what this behavior model from Frog teaches is that for behavior to happen, it has to combine these three elements at the same time: motivation, capability, and prompt. Without it, we will not design AI service that generate behavior change. And last, we have the context as a catalyst. So VSense ignored the principles of the nudge theory. They start sending notifications to the wrong moment. For example, when the user was injured or it was running outside. So they lack this context. And what the nudge theory teaches is that giving the right intervention on the right time makes all the difference between the user accept the service or reject it because it sees like a friction and an annoying thing. And a lot of systems like Nest and this one, they are completely blind to the user context. That's why they a lot automate this function, because they are not having into consideration the psychology, the behavior, the physical conditions, and sometimes even the situational conditions of the user. So they send the wrong triggers. And backcasting here can help us design a service that comprehends how to act, and more importantly, how to not act. So Vicens, instead of guiding the user to a unique experience as they were promised, they failed. They fail completely because they ignore all of the three elements that I spoke in the beginning: the user control, the intent, and the foresight. And the three behavior science frameworks, they help us make the audit and the diagnostic why this type of service commonly fail. So, hands-on. Now that we understand why most of the services nowadays are failing in the market, what the book proposes is a systematic way to overcome this challenge. And what I proposed is a module to design this service based on these three concepts: the behavior science, temporal integration, and user intent. And for that, I built a very simple framework that you can have access through the book on how to approach this service from a future-oriented focus, and not only on the forecasting focus, looking only just to the historical data. And what we'll see in the book is how to use these three different phases: to anticipate, try to it will give you the tools to learn how to observe and look for these behaviors in your users, and especially how to learn how to assess how technology, social, and economic factors that we don't control can affect indirectly and directly our services. So I give you the tools to try to come up with more resilient AI service that can adapt to the user context in real time and scale as the user needs evolve. And in the second phase of the framework, I will teach you how to use foresight and future thinking tools to try to predict the right future or anticipate change that can affect your user experience. So the goal is not to design a specific feature, but be prepared for a wild range of possibilities. And third is the shape phase. So I will give you some recommendations how to turn these anticipatory phase and the speculation phase into action and start prototyping things to be more resilient in the end, and prepared to design systems that are more proactive than reactive, and also more ethical and more aligned with the needs of your users. So the final message I want to give you is that for me, the future of AI doesn't depend on more sophisticated algorithms. The technology we have is very strong already, but it's failing not because of the technology itself, but because how we are using it and designing it. So I think AI, machine learning, and deep learning literacy is no longer nice to have for designers. They need to understand these domains because the decisions that the tech side take over will affect directly the way we design our user experience. And any questions, curiosities about the book?
I do have some questions for you, Joana. I will come clean because this is a real book club. I haven't finished the book yet. I'm starting chapter 6 and I'm really liking it, by the way. But one of the questions that I would like to ask first is since this was one of the last things I read, is how can I introduce the concept of data design to my team or company or processes? Basically, how do I convince my devs that I should be part of the conversation? Because right now we are working with something of AI voice. So you call and AI will answer you and it will feel like a person. And from the book, I feel like I should have some saying in that and how is the experience gonna go. How would you address this topic?
That's the most common question I get from designers, and that's why the first 3 chapters of the book are just to give you that literacy, how to understand the lingo they use, and how that affect the way we can collaborate with them. Because in the end, it's like having one person speaking English and another speaking Portuguese. They will say something, but they will not communicate. So designers will have to do the effort to understand the technical part, because the effort will never come the other part.
Right.
We will have to do that effort. And from the moment you start understanding what is an algorithm, which algorithm they choose, and how they are training it, you will start knowing how to do the hard questions to your team. And when you start doing those questions, they will understand, okay, she understands. She are making me think. Because a lot of times, if you don't understand the knowledge space, they can give you a crap justification, and because you don't know what you don't know, you accept and go away.
Right.
But from the moment you start having that literacy, you will start knowing when they are just pushing you away because they don't want extra work.
So before requesting to join the seat at the table, I need to first understand what it will be discussed and gain the respect, I guess, from
Yeah,
others, right?
unfortunately, yes, that's the hard part. Because if you come up to a team and asking, I want to be part of your conversation, they will not understand why. They will see you as an
Imposter.
yeah, or an intruder. Why she wants to be
Get
part
eyes
of
on our work,
the
I guess.
technical conversation, because they also don't understand how they tune and trade the model will affect the end user experience. So when you start doing the technical questions, then they will start realizing there's a bridge to build between the 2 parts.
Okay, I don't know if anyone else wants to ask some question.
Going once, going twice.
I have more, so
Yeah, but we really just letting everyone know, like every question is welcome, and you guys should be like, don't be afraid of even asking the more
You can steal one of mine if you need. I put in Q&A.
Okay. So I'm just gonna ask you, Joana, to stop sharing the screen so we can see everyone that is in the call also.
Yeah.
I feel like that also helps, and who's still here. But maybe Mariana, you can just go ahead and talk about another one, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about when it comes to understanding this world of AI and
Let me see
everything.
my screen.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would like to know a bit more, because through the book, I know you mention a lot of times how AI is based on data and data can be biased. I would like to know a bit more about that, and even if you have more suggestions to dig a bit deeper on how to not bias AI, because this is a topic that's very interesting to me. Because, data that AI bases itself will influence the world as we see today. And I think it would be very interesting to know a bit more about that.
So our data science colleagues, they choose the metrics and the variables they want to train the model with. And I'll wait to be a part of the conversation and ask for that which variable and parameters they are choosing to train the model, and see if any of those have any human behavior condition, and if not, try to understand if it's possible to add one. So when you start understanding the way models are trained, you can start pushing the human behavior conversation even to the training moment. And that way could be one of the ways to not be that biased, depending on the metrics, the variables we are tracking. Of course, our data scientists also have ways to reduce the bias on the data, and this is not a very black and white situation, because sometimes there's scenarios where bias in the data is good to spot outliers and bad behaviors. So looking to bias as always a bad thing is not 100% correct, because it will depend on the scenario. Sometimes you can use that bias on your advantage to understand if there's any bad behavior per se, and use that to optimize the model.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yet again, asking if anyone else has another question. Even if it's just like regular, it can be just an opinion if you guys don't have a question. Again, the idea of this club, and I know that it's our first time and we're still testing out the format and see how this works, it's just having an open conversation. So I already said a bunch of stuff that Joanna heard me talk about AI, so she doesn't need a lot of my opinions here. We were lucky enough to share the stage last week in Lydia. But I would really love to hear what you guys have. If you have any questions or concerns or different ways of thinking about this theme that Joanna has in her book, and how we can think about the future on design and things.
And also your question in Portuguese, by the way.
Yeah. Silent. Okay.
So I can add a last comment. So if I had to summarize the book in one sentence, what I would say is that this book is a manual for designers and even product managers or people that want to gain AI, machine learning, and deep learning literacy on a very simple way, because I had to go to the hard way to study the hard part. So I was able to break down the complexity to a very manageable and understandable level. So you will learn how AI and machine learning and deep learning works, and understand why most of the AI solutions today are failing. I give you a lot of practical and hands-on tools for you to make those assessments. Look to your AI systems and diagnose why they are failing. And you will gain more confidence to speak with your data engineers and data scientists, and have a more strategic and relevant position in the product vision. And that's it. And you will learn how to fetch a lot of tools from other fields of knowledge to help in your design process.
I feel like that's not only very relevant right now, but very important for everyone to like just keep questioning how these things work, and if they are doing the right job, or if they are being used the right way. The processes, the ideas, the technologies, everything that it's coming with AI, it's changing a lot. And I'm really happy that you did this book. I'm gonna be honest, I'm way behind Mariana, but I'm already enjoying the book. But it's one of those things where it is changing a lot right now, the way that we have to work. And I feel like you did a really good job of starting to lay the foundation and give us models that actually make it easier for us to think about these things. And again, look into the future. I feel like we a lot of times really get stuck into analyzing the past, try and figure out what the next step is. But there's so many like interesting exercises when it comes to imagining what's next, rather than being stuck in reading what was before. And I like that approach a lot, to be honest.
Thank you.
A quick question for a quick answer, since we are almost finished. But how much AI did you use to write this book? Doesn't need to be in the writing itself, but like organizing stuff. I don't know, planning things.
Yeah, not much, because ChatGPT just came around when I was almost finished.
Ah, okay. So you wrote it before.
Yes. So I started my PhD 10 years ago. I finished last year, so it took me 9 years to complete it, because I did it as a part-time. So I did it the hard way. But in the end, I use it more to synthesize and do data analysis, because I study more than 50 surveys, and I collect a lot of variables to understand what were the things they were constantly failing. That's why I came up with conclusion that intent, user control, and foresight were the three main factors that made all the AI systems fail.
And I think so. But do you believe that since you finished writing the book before ChatGPT, do you think that the things you wrote about are still applicable today?
Yes, because I went to the fundamentals, to human behavior, and I think is one of the key factors that it's missing in most of the AI literacy in books today. Everyone is eager to use AI to design AI, but they are not looking to how people behave. And that's why I still think the behavior science frameworks, although they are here for a long time, they are still relevant, because we need to go back to the fundamentals, human behavior, how we behave, how we trust in things, how we how we want the systems evolve with us. And I think that's the missing key in most of the AI literature today, and that's why I wrote my book in a very different perspective from the rest.
Okay.
Really
So
good.
what about
I gotta say one thing, which is I don't agree with the fact that people are designing AI, because I feel that a lot of people are using AI, but there's very little people actually thinking about what designing AI is. There's a lot of people about thinking about what building and engineering AI, but not designing AI in the sense of the more human side and all of the things that you just mentioned. I feel like that is still there's not a lot of people actually investing a huge amount of times in thinking about that. At least it feels that there's a big focus on there's established patterns. Those patterns kind of work, so we're just gonna go with it. And it's like, eh. There's a lot of work, a lot of stuff that we can do too. So why not try?
Yeah, I agree.
Elena, you raise your hand.
I'm actually, yes, I'm actually in the middle of a AI building an AI feature our for our product, and it was a big stretch. So we divided it into two levels, and okay, so for you to understand, my product is a survey builder, and some users wanted it to integrate AI to help with building like questions, populating choices and responses. But we got, and that would be the very easy part of AI, because it's fishing out of a bank of pre-made kind of template questions that we already have for like demographics. So we understand that users need these type of questions, and we but we need some context, and that was the hard part to build in the back end of the our product, which was we needed to understand the goals that they had with a survey or a project, so the AI would have some information on what answers they would give, and that took us to the level 2 of AI, that we are building a chat, but it's a chat that needs to be based on our own info, not just link it to a random AI on the web. And it needs to be closed off as well, because some users might have projects who are more sensitive information, and they just want AI to be trained with their own information. And the dev team, the backend team, were already starting to build that, and the design kind of jumped in the middle of a product call that everyone was in, like, oh, have you thought about this particular flow, because this might happen with like a chaotic user. And we just jumped in and started the research part, so it was a lot of UX from our end, and we've been developing this for so long, and we are releasing it into small stages, and testing it with real users that have like an admin level to the platform, for example, and then understand how they use it and what feedback do we gain. But we just jumped on the dev call and started to make our own like inputs to the situation, and we got mixed up with it since the research part and the backlog and everything that can possibly do. So maybe just jump scare your devs, and in the middle of the product call, like we need to, you need us, because we research the behaviors. It's not just building the machine for the sakes of it. It needs to have some sort of context, and it needs to work for specific people. So you need us to investigate how that works, and all the chaos status that can be, because sometimes we design something and then it's perfect, but we didn't foresee that it would have some chaotic use for extreme cases, for example, and then you need to go back and design for those cases. But yeah, that's my part.
I love the concept of jump scaring your devs into a
Well, they
problem.
sometimes do that to us. The other day they did a demo of something that was designed by them because they thought we didn't have the time, so they didn't bother us.
But
That was
you can still earn your place in the discussion. For example, you can use backcasting as a tool to start imagine all the possible scenarios where things can go wrong. And LLMs, they hallucinate a lot. They can tell you with very confidence something wrong. And if you don't know what you don't know, you will accept that response. And if that happens, you can map those scenarios and go back to your data team and say, okay, if user asks something and the systems provide an answer with a very confidence, but it's wrong, you can learn how to speak with the data team about how to between optimizing the algorithm for precision or recall, and give them concrete examples on those scenarios can affect the user experience. And you can start measuring the confidence level of the user using the system, the trust, the transparency, and use those metrics to go back to the data team saying, you need to tune your algorithm because my users are not trusting your system, or they are not confident to use it. I don't know, but you can start measuring and going back to the data team and starting have a voice in the tech part, and this will open you doors to be more proactive in future conversations.
Mm-hmm.
cool. Okay, we're basically out of time at this point. It's already 7:40. We've been here for a little bit, about an hour. I would love to ask everyone that is still here if you guys can turn on your camera just to take a photo of everyone together. Again, if you have your own drink, just raise it up a little bit. I think it's going to be a different. I love that Francisco went to grab a bottle at the bottom of the room. There you go, full of water. I love Carolina's background. Filipa is having troubles with her camera, I think, because it's a little bit dark. There you go. Okay, I have this ready. Let's see if anyone else is going to join us. If not, 3, 2, 1. There you go. Photo taken. Thank you very much, everyone. And thanks, everyone, for being here for our first book club. Mariana,
You are the OGs, by the way.
the OGs. Exactly. I was going to say also a big thank you to Mariana, because she was the one that started bringing this idea to the table, and we're going to try and keep doing this every month. If you have books that you would love to see explored or authors that you would love to hear from, let us know. We're looking for the book for the next month. We have a tentative date, but we'll have more news soon as we start to confirm. But again, let us know, really. And I love that Salome just started looking at the cat. And one last thing is, if you, like Joana, also have a book that you want to share, bring it to us, and we'll try to give you a little bit of stage. That's what this community is for, and we would love to have more community members be able to just present themselves here and have a conversation. Yeah. Okay.
I have just a final challenge. So
Bring it.
if any of you read the book and want, for example, to write a critique or a reflection about the book, I can put you in contact with the UX Matter it's not publisher, how do you call it? Editor.
Editor.
And editor, and you can publish an article there about the book. So if
Cool.
any of you want to grab that challenge, talk with me. I will be eager to help.
That's a great challenge. Okay, thanks everyone, and hope to see you all on the next Bookish. And stay tuned because we have a lot more events coming in from Friends of Figma in Porto, Coimbra, and Lisbon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Obrigado.
Bye-bye.